Okay, so just moving just gently from side to side. So we just move to help settle down. Yeah, so we just try to enter a meditative space. So it's meditation. So the thing about meditation is it's long. You sort of enter long time. So where the unit of time is the breath. And so you just feel the breathing. It's like you're being rocked. It's a bit like being on a swing. You know, remember how enjoyable that was? You're just swinging through the air. So that's how these movements should feel. They should be very enjoyable. Yeah, so all the time gravity is pulling you down, but also that what you're introducing is the breath, you're breathing, and you're just using the movements to mark the breathing. So you're breathing in and you're breathing out. And with each movement, gravity just gets more and more into the body and pulls down more and more. It becomes more insistent. So you want to feel the oppressive force of gravity. It's pervasive, it's there all the time. It's just most of the time we don't have our attention on it. So in these classes, we just try to bring the attention to gravity. And that seems to make it stronger. It comes into us. So there's a flow. Each moment follows the next inevitably, which is very different from the sort of mental space that we're normally in, where there's all these sort of random, chaotic thoughts going on. So that has a very different dynamic, if you like. So this is just very smooth. We're trying to create a smooth, continuous thread of time with no breaks in it. That's what meditation is all about, really. So they count the breaths so that one follows the next. With a flow. One. Yeah, so imagine someone was behind you and they were sort of pressing down on your shoulders. You know, you'd feel your feet differently because your feet would be pressured not just by your weight, but by something else. You'd feel them really pressing into the ground. So you should be able to induce that, to really feel the feet flattening against the ground because there's an extra force, which is just the force of your attention. Yeah, so we want to get into the legs, not just be on top of the legs. Yeah. So just think of the legs as the arms of the Danchen. And the Danchen is where our real intuitive sort of mind is, the mind that we would like to cultivate. We'd like to get out of here and into here. Okay, and now let's just come to our normal place. Again, this force is so strong, it's almost crushing you. So have the hands with the Danchen. So this is the center we'd like to develop, but you can think of it as being this whole area. So the heart is like the very top of the Danchen area. And the Danchen proper is just this weight at the bottom holding it all in place. Now let's just pump it. Again, with the breath. So breathing in or out, and then the other one here. Or you can, if you want to extend your breathing, if you want to make your breathing longer, which is always a good idea at some point, then you can just do 2 movements for 1 breath. So remember, if you breathe in here and then breathe out here, then you'll tend to be working more with the relaxation. And if you breathe in here and then out here, then you're working more with the intensity. So this is like a pressure differential. Here, the pressure is really increasing because you're breathing in and you're pulling your belly in. And then here, you're breathing out and letting everything go. So the pressure really drops. Yeah, so really mind in Dan Chen, it's not just putting your mind somewhere different. It's a complete reorganization. So your center is now here. That's where you're operating from. It becomes the lung and it becomes the brain. So you're breathing from your Dan Chen, you're sucking it in, you're pushing it out, but also you're sort of thinking from there. And to get there, you really have to lose the environment. The thing about our environment, especially when you're inside, it's all straight lines and right angles. This is very circular. So if you think of me being like a circle, then this is the middle of the circle. Yeah, so you are the center of the universe. Your Dan Chen is the center of your world. Not in a selfish, self-centered way, but in an active way. It just means that you can just be more capable. So it's not self-centered, it's Dan Chen-centered. Self-centered would be up here, yeah? Okay, let's just bring it back to some sobriety. Okay, and now just, yeah. So there are two fundamental gravities, if you like. There's the gravity of the earth, which produces a straight line. So gravity is pulling down, and I have to push up against that to stop myself from falling. Yeah, so this is the spine, if you like. This is the linear, the still spine, the stationary spine. Yeah. But then there's also my gravity. So there's my gravitational center, which is holding on to all the parts of me and organizing me relative to it. And that is very much the center of a circular world, of these sort of concentric spheres and spirals. And they sort of work against each other. Yeah? So the more you get into your own center, the more you lose gravity. The more you find gravity and let it operate in a passive way, the more you sort of lose your center. Instead, you just become a line. So we're just trying to work with them, reconcile them somehow. But in both of those realities, this has no place. Thinking has no place. So you don't think with this, you just observe. It's very quiet and it just settles back and just watches. Yeah? So you put your attention on things. Yeah? So you don't invest emotion in it or judgment or criticism. Okay, now let's just feel the breathing. So just use a simple movement just to mark the breathing. Yeah, so when you're doing seated meditation, you know, you're quiet and you're watching the breathing, you're counting the breaths. And every time you lose your place in the counting scheme, you start again at the beginning. And it's difficult. I remember going to see John once and he just said to me, I didn't get beyond 3 last night. And so if you can somehow use a movement to help just trace that mark, trace the breathing, then in a sense it helps you stay with it a little bit better. So breathing in and breathing out. Feeling the rising energy, feeling the sinking energy. So this is that sort of spirit rising, the eyebrows lifting a little, and then this is the depression setting in. And just feel the posture. So when you bring the hands up, your bum naturally comes forwards a bit. And so you get this circuit down the spine, up the front. And then when you press down, it tends to go the other way. And you want that because you want this feeling that you're right on the edge of the two. You can easily slip into one, you can easily slip into the other. And then you want to feel the energy in the body moving in opposite directions. Yeah. So when I'm lifting the hands to bring the energy up, that's actually driving me down into my legs. Yeah. And then when I push down here, it's sort of bringing me up. So just exaggerate that a little bit. So as you bring the hands up, you go down, and then here, you're coming up. So the body and the energy is always moving in opposite directions. Okay. And now let's just ease it a bit and just turn. Again, just trying to keep this platform level. By relaxing, not by making something. You're just letting go all the time in these joints so that this can keep an even keel. So the head is always light, the sacrum is always heavy. So that's keeping you more or less vertical. Yes, if you can keep your attention on it in a soft way, then just more and more detail will open up. So you'll just go deeper into it. There's nothing worse than teaching a class with mindless students. So, people just sort of doing this and thinking about when's it going to finish. Yeah. So it's just real attention to every millimeter. So it's moving meditation. So we're using the body to get to the mind. John always used to quote that Faith in Mind poem, where it says, to use the mind to work on the mind, how stupid can you get? Yeah. So in this, we're just using movements of the body, but with an attentive mind. So that through the movements, layers of mind are revealed that would always remain hidden from us if we were trying to look at the mind with the mind, or trying to look at the mind with the ego, effectively, that would be. Yeah, so the ego is the enemy. That's what we're fighting. That's the sense in which it is a martial art. So we have to really feel that the ego doesn't belong. It's what Castaneda called a foreign installation. It's from elsewhere. It's not human. So the natural state of the mind is actually one of complete quiet. And like Castaneda said as well, the only way to fight the ego is through impeccability. Yeah? So like rules for yourself, like moral or ethical rules. Yeah? So this is what for us practice is. So practice is that sacred time that you just do regard. This is what I find great about meditation. I'm never too tired. Tiredness is never an excuse. Because to sit on your ass and just watch your breaths, it doesn't take a lot of energy. So the ego hates you drawing your attention away from it. It wants our mind with it all the time so it can gobble up all our psychic energy, all our consciousness. So if we have the discipline to just take it away from that just for a few minutes in the day, then there's a sense that we're just it's like an investment. You're putting aside something for later, for that moment of death. Okay. And now let's get into the feet doing this. Yeah. Ty found a wonderful video on YouTube of an Alsatian that had been brought up by cats. Yeah. And it just does this all the time, you know, copying the cats. I mean, dogs never do this, but this Alsatian is just sort of with its claws opening and closing. Yeah. So it's amazing what can be learned. Yeah. Okay, so just moving from foot to foot and but using more this action in the foot. So as I bring the weight out of the foot, it allows the foot to really expand, like it grows, like the fingers extend. And then to get into the foot, I crunch the toes up just to pull myself across. Yeah, so the motor is the foot. I mean, there's a lot of leg involved as well, but it feels like the impetus is actually coming from the foot expanding and contracting, expanding, contract. Yeah. So if you just keep at it, then eventually the whole of you is doing this. It's not just your foot and your hand. Every particle inside you is engaged in the activity. This whole side is opening up and then it closes. This side opens up. You just have to just give it time. Keep your attention on it and it will develop. It will deepen. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. And just feel, you know, when it opens up, it's the little toe and the little finger that becomes most dominant. And then when it crunches up, it's like the big toe and the thumb. So here, as it opens, the last thing to open is the little finger and the little toe. So that's really sort of extending, 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 and then it's the first thing to close. Yeah. So the dominant, heavy, the molar quantity is never where the spirit is. The spirit is always on the periphery. It's always in the margins, the boundaries, yeah, the places people normally ignore. Yeah, so as you get into it, again, it just takes you more and more into the Dan Chen. So you get more and more into your own gravity space. Okay, and then back to here. So just feel this center, not just as a refuge, but as a real contractive force. So when you manage to get that, you don't have a lot of patience, yeah? So there's that elastic pull into the dantian all the time. So when you breathe in and it expands, it's wanting to pull back. Yeah. So it's quite difficult to extend out. You never lose that center. Everything's being pulled in, and so this is inevitable. And then everything just bounces out because it really compresses. And you just, that force just becomes a lot stronger if you can do the reverse breathing. So if I can breathe in here and out here. Okay. And now just in and out. Yeah, so to develop the dantian, you really need to negate this, ignore this, but you also ignore this as a center in itself. It's just the top of the dantian. You know, the Chinese love the yin yang symbol, so they would imagine this is the yin yang symbol with the two eyes as the two centers. Yes, just feel the feet. Okay. And now let's just try just pacing, just to ease the legs a bit. Yeah. But again, just something just so innocuous, so sort of trivial. If you just repeat it and keep repeating it and just sink in it, then it becomes quite a thing. Yeah. So here you just work on full and empty, full, empty, full, empty. Yeah. Yeah, so you just start something really simple and just see where it goes. Yeah, something will open up in it. you hadn't really noticed before. And so that becomes just a point of interest that makes it worthwhile continuing with. But you need that beginning stage of it actually seeming silly and boring before you get in, before you find what's special. 1, 2. And then just and again, just relaxing, using the activity to settle everything down. Feel the heavy sacrum so that your back is under no strain, your lower back. Yeah, so you can feel it, you can feel the energy sort of sloshing around a little in the belly, but you're just trying your best just to keep it relatively settled. It's a bit like a rain dance, yeah? You sort of trying to sort of encourage the ground to give up a bit of that rising energy. Yeah, so when we start an activity, we tend to be in this mode because we're sort of looking down on it, trying to get it right and everything. And then as we get into it, the bum comes in and we slip into this mode. Yeah. So that encouraging the spirit to rise a bit. Okay, and now let's just feel the arm. So just leaning over and just feeling the arm just hanging down. Yeah. And now just little turns here just to get it swinging a little bit. Yes, you want the arm to be sort of completely limp. So this movement is coming because you're doing something here rather than something in the arm. So just feel how difficult it is not to help with your arm. And just feel the arm sort of getting heavier, more full of blood. And just hanging more, like almost like the tendon, the ligament is stretching in the shoulder. Ooh. And then just circling. So circling here to make the arm circle. But again, trying to get the movement from the hip rather than from the arm. I mean, a little bit will always come in with the arm, but so the shape it takes is really just a function of your structure. And you do this turn here to basically, because if you didn't do that, it would just do this. Yeah. So to stop it from continuing around you, you turn back. So that's the yielding turn. That's the turn that actually draws the hand in, but also draws the other person in. But it's all the yield. The whole thing is the yield. Yeah. Because in order to draw the person in, you have to reach forwards and connect with them. And that's this bit. And then you yield. You're entering and you're neutralizing. Yeah. But, we're just trying to get it sort of shapeless. It's just, it takes the shape it does because that's the body, not because that's the tension or the mind designing. So 1 and 2, 1. Yeah, so you have to become expert at gauging just how much of a turn to introduce here to get the hand to almost touch you and slip past. Yield and yield. It's difficult, this. It's so much easier not to do it right. Yeah, so any sort of loss of control is generally accompanied by fear. So when you really loosen the arm and just let it go, it is quite strange and alarming. It's like you're just dissociated from the arm. Almost feels like I could take it off and just put it down. Okay, let's try the other side. So just again, just leaning across, putting the weight into this leg and just letting the arm hang. And then just gentle movements here to get it to swing a little bit. And just watching it with your mind. Is it really relaxed? Is it not helping a little bit? Yeah, so when it is relaxed, it feels the air a bit different. Ooh. And it feels damn heavy, you know, it really feels like it's really pulling me into this leg. Ooh. And then just get the two turns. Yeah, they have a little sort of blip in there just to get the circle operating instead of just this back and forth. Ooh. Try not to move the weight around too much. So it's just, the body's not really moving, it's just one part is moving back and forth with a slight turn. Okay. And now just this, but with that same sort of feeling. Yeah, so the turn here is not just to let the person through. There has to be a sort of whip in it so that this will fly back forwards. So it's quite tricky. And again, you're not moving side to side, you're just in the middle, you're using the turn to connect to the foot rather than moving like this, yeah? So, yeah, so there comes a point where moving your root around, moving the root from foot to foot is not a matter of moving the body. It's just a matter of just bringing a little bit of squeezing tension into the leg. Ooh. Ooh. Yeah, so both of your roots are there all the time, but only one's operating at a time. And now let's just try a bit of this. So again, this center, so the Dantian heart, and you're just tracing around it. Yeah, so you set something going within the fields of gravity. So with the earth pulling you down and with your own center very much dominant. And then you need the lift of spirit through that. And that is just like almost like the inner smile or the eyebrows lifting. And that will just fill it out. It will sort of expand the joints a little. So it's not grinding, it's not heavy. The body is heavy, but there's a real sense of light energy. And you just, if you had to be really careful about something, yeah, picking up a baby or something like that, that would just be totally natural. You'd know how to induce that proper energy of care. Yeah, so you're just doing something that is nothing and treating it as though it's the most important thing in the world. And then it just starts to soften. Yeah? This is the magic of Tai Chi, softness. Whoa. So it has a sort of yielding quality. So, care tends to be, it's just a type of anxiety, really, carefulness. So we start off like that, but gradually it just softens. So these movements are happening because of a yielding, because of a relaxing, rather than because I'm sort of holding up in my shoulders, yeah? Ooh. So you're just producing good energy, energy that's really listening and is really gentle and respectful. Okay. And now let's just link these two centers. So basically this exercise is just the same thing, yeah. But here, they're almost together. You want the hands just not to want to rise any higher than here. It's like, ugh. It's just too much. Okay. So now let's just try just a little bit of the form, just with that feeling of real sort of heaviness, like everything is under the influence of this center. Yeah, so if I want my hand to go out here, I really have to whip it because it just wants to instantly spring back. Okay, and just feel these two folds here, because these are where you yield from. This is where the movement starts, if you like. Yeah, so I melt here, and that lets me step, and then I melt here, and that starts me yielding. And then up, and then just again, just break here. You know, in a lot of styles, they really bend and stick their bum out here, so they get this feeling that this fold is sucking your elbows down. Yeah. And then here, just feel the elbows really heavy, like they're really being pulled down. And then bend here. Ooh, and that will bring the hands round. And this hand will almost want to disappear into it. And then step. And now here you really have to do something with the waist here to throw this arm up. And then you come forwards. And it just, there's no way you could get it any higher than this. And this hand is really under the control of this fold. And then you fold even more here. Yeah, so, ooh. Yes, and my elbows are dragging down. And then here I really throw that up and then forwards. And again, the elbows being pulled down by gravity, but also by my own gravity. It's like they're wanting to pull into my belly. And then one, so folding here, and that will suck the hand down into it. And then folding here, and it will swing this hand round and bring this hand up, and then forwards. And then again, folding here, push and push. So there's no shoulder. This is what's difficult. There's no shoulder in. Remember when we first started? I mean, Johnny just looked like he had no shoulders. I mean, he developed shoulders later when we got into the figures of 8. So this real sloping, like your hands are, like your arms are really long. Okay, so let's try again. So there's this sense here that you can slip either side. Like these two places are doing this as much as turning. Yeah, so I'm, so there's an independence between the two sides of my body when I turn. They tend to get locked together in the turn. And then here and now I just really fold here. Ooh, ooh, stick my tail out if anything. And then one. Yeah. So the arms are going out, but the elbows are really hang down. And then as I come forwards, this folds, and that brings the hands in. Step and whoa. And whoo. And so what you're doing with your arms is very much under the influence of your dantian. The heart just doesn't really come into it. I mean, later on, if you can develop the dantian and get it strong, then the heart can come into its own. But ooh. And again, I just throw this up, and then as I fold here, the elbow gets drawn down into the push. Yeah? Yeah, so there's this sense of just breaking here all the time. And you can get it when you're walking. You know, when you're walking, just sense that this is actually hollowing a little bit as you know, the way we were doing that, walking with the weight in the foot, but just very sort of minimal. Yeah? Just think of the way Mac walks, you know, his knees are just so loose. Okay, so one more. So I melt here. Ooh, it takes me down and brings this up here. And then, ooh, this melts. And then one. And then I just let this, ooh. So that's the thing that gets the sinking starting from the previous bit, which was the rising energy. And then I turn here, elbows heavy. Step and ooh, and ooh. And then one more this side. So it's this fold here. Trying my best to keep my spine vertical. And then it's this fold here. Okay, so the elbows are already heavy, but then when I break here, it just sucks them. Whoa, they get sucked down. And then here, elbows still heavy, like they're really pulling down. And then folding here, and that will have some effect on the hands. I just choose to keep this one high. And then one, and ooh. 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 So it's pulling this and this into this fold, and then I just whip it out. So imagine how strongly you have to whip here to keep this arm up. And then here I just throw this out, and then as soon as I start coming forwards and turning this way, this starts opening up, and so the elbow gets pulled. So one and whoo. Okay. So let's just bring it back to attention posture. So as you're standing like this, there's always this sense of each side of the body is just wanting to turn and yield. So this is wanting to do this, and this is wanting to do this. And when this is wanting to do this, the weight is wanting to come into this foot completely. And when I do this, the weight is wanting to come into this foot completely. So there's this feeling of this happening all the way down my body. So there's almost like a ridge here, which is my presence. Like there's a wind blowing at me and I'm just sort of just shrugging it past. So you're being drawn into each foot. So there's this feeling of almost splitting down the middle. And it's quite interesting doing it with another person, it's just having the other person standing there in front of you. Yeah, because then you can feel their gravity. Yeah, there's something about them that's actually just pulling you forwards. And so this yielding quality here is actually balancing their pull and enabling you just to sort of tremble and hover in the middle somehow. Remember Mac, said, he told me that, because he was a therapist, a good one apparently, according to Geraldine, and a family therapist. And so he said, when he's standing there in front of the person he's treating, he just imagines he's a sponge, yeah, and he's just soaking up everything that's coming out of them. So this absolute listening, yeah. And then you need a drain, you need somewhere to take all that, and that is just through the body and into the ground. So this is why this turning, because every time you turn, you sink. So there's a real passage through. And then that just enables you to present something that's authentic, yeah, something real. Okay.